And a very good Thursday morning. This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and as always, it is great to have you guys today. We got a lot to talk about on the show, as we usually do, but before we start, I just want to remind you guys, take care of some business before, we get into the topics that we are going to talk about. Is obviously make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip, and you can see that on the bottom of the ticker, to get your comments recognized. And also for exclusive content, you can find us on patreon.com and look up GSMC Sports Network. So as I said, we do have a lot to discuss on today's show. So starting off the show, we'll go through some the latest news and headlines surrounding Major League Baseball. Big stuff happened yesterday. Guys getting hurt. As I posted a short yesterday talking about one of those injuries, so we'll get into that. Then we will go into the second segment, and we will talk about should Major League Baseball switch over to robot umpires, because that's been a big thing, in recent years, and I'll get into that. And then in the third segment, we'll go over the scores from last night, look at the current standings like we normally do. Again, we're getting closer and closer to the playoffs, and there's spots still up for grabs, and actually one spot was officially claimed, and that was the NL East last night. And then we will conclude the show by going over the power rankings that were released earlier this week. So that's going to be something I'm going to try to do each week, even though the season's pretty much almost over, is just go and talk about the recent power rankings, during at least one of the shows, each week, and we'll see how that impacts the postseason, because MLB releases them, so I'll just go over them and give my thoughts on them. So that is basically the rundown for today's show. So with that, let's get into our first segment, which is talking about the latest news and headlines surrounding Major League Baseball. So the big thing that came out for last night was, well, first of all, Max Scherzer, and I was going to try to use a graphic, but I was having some issues with that, and put, just to have something up, but I was having a little bit of issues. But that, just a small thing. I tried to paste over an image that I had in from the previous show, and for some reason it made the image that I was putting in much bigger, so I couldn't tap on it and minimize it, well, make it smaller to fit the screen. So and I was kind of pressed for time because I didn't want that to run into the beginning of the show here. So there's no graphics for today, but I'll make sure to have at least one for tomorrow. But yeah, so the big thing, obviously, is Max Scherzer getting injured. So he will miss the rest of the regular season, and the postseason is kind of unlikely, as it says, looking at MLB.com, MLB at bat. So he's going to miss the rest of the regular season with a low-grade strain of his right teres major muscle. Now, I was trying to do the short yesterday, and I was trying to memorize that, and I couldn't, so I just said a strain in his upper arm. But, yeah, so this is announced by their general manager, Chris Young, and, yeah, he was placed on the 15-day injured list, and it's possible, it's unlikely that he's going to pitch in the postseason, so he's pretty much done for the year. And honestly, the Mets made the right decision trading this guy, because if the Mets were going to try to add at the deadline and try to go for it, this would have been a huge blow for them. But this is a huge blow for the Rangers, and the Rangers look bad making this trade. because this is a team that's trying to make the postseason, and they're actually playing some pretty good baseball right now. But this is a huge blow for them, and they just can't catch a break with getting veteran pitchers. They signed Corey Kluber. They traded for Corey Kluber. Or they signed Corey Kluber a few years ago, and he pitched like an inning, and then he was out. And then you go out and you get DeGrom. DeGrom's constantly in and out, and then he's out for the rest of the year. He's going to get Tommy John. And you had Evaldi, who was hurt, but now he's back. So and now you got Max Scherzer, who's now going to miss the rest of the regular season, and that was supposed to be kind of DeGrom's replacement. So, it really stinks for the Rangers. However, they have won 5 in a row now, and right now they hold the playoff spot. And guys like Nathan Evaldi and Jordan Montgomery and Dunning, they got to step up and propel this team to the playoffs. They still got a good lineup. But it's really a tough blow for them, even though Max Scherzer really wasn't pitching his best. So let's kind of go through actually Max Scherzer's numbers. And he was one of the guys that I actually forgot to mention when I was going over trades. I don't think I mentioned him within that segment, but there was a lot of stuff going on. We had Wi-Fi go out in the middle of the stream. We had my dad cleaning up the house during the stream as well. So there was a lot going on yesterday. So Max Scherzer with the Rangers is most likely going to finish the year. So he finished with 13 wins on the season. He finished with a 4-2 record, 3.20 ERA. So I mean his numbers aren't terrible, but especially against the Astros, that was a start that the Rangers, that was a game the Rangers really needed, and he didn't deliver. But opponent's batting average was down to 174, and the WHIP was slightly below 1. So I mean, like his numbers weren't bad with the Rangers, but this could be the last time we see Max Scherzer pitch. It's possible, but we'll just have to wait and see on that. But that is a big blow for the Rangers. But they're playing good, and I keep saying this, but it really is going to come down to who's hot at the right time. Because you're seeing, I mean, even in the National League too. Like I was talking about, the Reds and the Marlins, one of those two teams. Then the Diamondbacks got hot. The Marlins were hot at one time. It's really all going to come down to with the wild card race. It's really going to come down to who is hot at the right time. And right now the Rangers are hot, 5 in a row. And I expected the Blue Jays, and I didn't realize this was a 4-game set. Right now they've taken the first 3 games against the Blue Jays. So right now the Blue Jays are the team that's scuffling right now, and they got to get their act together if they're going to want to make the playoffs. Because if they don't make the playoffs, I mean, that's just, I don't even know what to say at this point. I mean, that's, again, another year of them falling short. But, I mean, they made it last year, but they choked against the Mariners. Notice how I didn't screw up that time with Marlins and Mariners. But, yeah, so the Max Scherzer thing, that was kind of the biggest deal yesterday, to come out of yesterday. Another thing, so the Astros had a no-hitter going, and that fell 2 outs shy. I mean, listen, the Astros have done a lot of good things. They had a combined no-hitter last year against the Yankees. But, yeah, they actually got themselves back together. A's got 2 runs in the 9th inning against them. But, yeah, so I guess they almost had another combined no-hitter from what I'm understanding. Yeah, so it was almost a combined no-hitter. Presley's the one that gave up. He has the 2 earned runs tacked onto his name. So, yeah, so that was another thing. But the Astros, they get back on the right track and they beat the A's, who for some reason they have been struggling against. I really don't understand why. And then I guess the big news as well. The Braves, they've won their 6th straight NL East title. So that was wrapped up last night. They did that in Citizens Bank Park against the Phillies. So that's the first team to clinch their division, which I think I talked about earlier in the week. That was going to get done at some point this week, and that's exactly what happened. So, and they're going to finish with the best record in baseball most likely, and they're going to have home field throughout the playoffs, and that's huge. That is huge. But, we'll just have to see. I mean, this team is very good. This team is a juggernaut, as it says in the article on as I'm looking on MLB, that the headline is Juggernaut Braves. So, again, I mentioned it a couple times. Can this team make it this year? And is it could it be another year where another team gets hot and knocks them off? Right now, I don't know because they're just too good, but we'll have to wait and see, as I like to say. Um, but yeah, so the Phillies, as it says here, take a step forward as Reds take over third wild card spot. So right now the Reds have that spot. It's always changing. It really is always changing with that, and that's what makes it exciting. And another thing too is so MLB put out an article that said the best start to an MLB career ever is happening right now, and that is the rookie for the Toronto Blue Jays, Davis Schneider. He is off to the greatest start in MLB history. And I was like, okay, but it's not hyperbolic. So right now, he's hitting 370. He's got a 13-15 OPS, and this is the best that anyone's ever done in 25 games. And they also have listed some of the best like OPSs through the first 25 games all time. So you have below Schneider, you have Mandy Brooks for the Cubs in 1925. You have Alvin Davis of the Mariners in 1984. Austin Kearns, who played for the Reds at that time in 2002, he had a 1182 OPS. Rhys Hoskins, 2017 for the Phillies, he had an 1169 OPS. An 1165 OPS George Scott had with the Red Sox in 1965. Pujols, he had an 1149 OPS in 2001. Willie McCovey, 1959 for the Giants, 1140. And Mitchell Page, 1977 with the A's, 1137. So that's there's some notable names on there. So that's good company to be with. But no matter how good this guy does, if the Blue Jays don't make the playoffs, it's not going to matter. But he really has, he's been very good. I haven't really been paying that much attention to him, but, this article puts it in great perspective what he's been doing. But we can actually dive into his individual stats if I can pull them up. But yeah, he is having a very good, he's been great since they've called him up. So, but you know what? Listen, the Blue Jays, they got to, they got to start playing better because right now they are on the outside looking in. So right now, the batting average is down to 353. He's got 8 home runs, 20 RBIs, and that's down to now 1257. But still, very good numbers in the limited amount of time, in 85 at bats. So, and 24 years old. Second base, listen, Blue Jays are going to need him because right now, like I said, they're kind of scuffling at the moment. So, but yeah, and then also another quick thing as well. This is another thing I forgot to mention. So, Sandy Alcantara of the Marlins, he has a UCL sprain. So right now, the MRI revealed that. So he's taking it day by day, and that's that's a big loss for the Marlins right now. They right now are on the outside looking in as well. And right now, the Diamondbacks and the Reds are tied for that third wild card spot, and they're a half game back. And the Giants are a half game back as well. So that race is really just, it's really been just crazy. And it really is going to come down to that last week. Might come down to the last day of the regular season. So, yeah, that's pretty much it with the main headlines and latest news, surrounding Major League Baseball. And, so with that, we're going to take our first break of the show. And then when we come back, I'm going to talk about whether or not Major League Baseball should switch to robot umpires. So, we will be right back. Stick around. And we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, and for the second segment of today's show, we're going to talk about if MLB should switch to robot umpires. Now, the reason for me coming up with this segment for today, and this was definitely something that was going to get talked about at some point while I was doing this show, is an article that came out regarding Pittsburgh Pirates' Ke'Bryan Hayes, third baseman. So he was very critical of Major League Baseball, and he is really calling for there to be an automated ball strike system. So ABS, as it's abbreviated. I was trying to be like robot umpires is ABS, but yeah, that's what it is. It's automated ball strike system. So that's what ABS stands for. Yeah. So I mean I would have just said robot umpires, but it's got to sound sophisticated, mature. So professional. So so basically this incident occurred against the Braves. This was earlier in the week. Bill Miller made a really bad called third strike on a pitch that was way outside the strike zone. You could probably find the video anywhere on YouTube. You've probably already seen it. And so Hayes expressed a lot of frustration on social media over it, and he's calling for the ABS system to be adopted into Major League Baseball. Now, Major League Baseball actually has been testing this out in AAA. So they allow a computer to make calls in some games, and they also give players the ability to challenge a human umpire in others. Rob Manfred said that it kind of it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen next year. I think that's what I was reading. So the system's unlikely going to be used in 2024. And they've also used it in the Atlantic League's 2019 All-Star Game and the 2019 Arizona Fall League. Those are just some other things that they've used this for, just to test it out. But I guess really what it comes down to is, from reading all that, is what do I think? And I think at some point it needs to happen, because I feel like, especially this year, and again, mostly for me, I'm just watching Yankee games, but it's happening everywhere. Like, you've seen the video of, what Ke'Bryan Hayes is, complaining about, I'm sure. Umpires have kind of, and a lot of fans talk about this, umpires, for some reason now, they like to really influence the game. And, I feel like there's definitely times where, they also get, like, if a player thinks it's ball four or something, and they flip the bat in a way that the umpires don't like it, then the next pitch, no matter where it is, could be a strike, because the umpire is just, upset with how the player, demonstrated thinking that he was going to walk to first base. Like, there's things like that, but I just feel like the strike zone, the umpires, like, it's so inconsistent, and the one thing that really annoys me is when you're watching a game on television and they have the strike zone box in front of the catcher's mitt, and I'm saying to myself, listen, yeah, that's the strike zone, but the umpires are not going to call it like that. They're going to call it how they want to call it. So I feel like it's meaningless having it there. I don't know. That just annoys me. But yeah, umpires like to have an influence on the game, and they call guys differently. Aaron Judge. How many times has he gotten called for a pitch that's below his knee? It's just, and it can't happen. So you gotta have something to change that. Now, how is it gonna work? We'll just have to wait and see. But I think you really got to consider doing that, because it's just, at this point, watching some of these games, I mean, there are so many strike calls where you're like, that's not a strike. I mean, even for my team, when the Yankees get out of an inning, out of a jam, off of a call, I'm like, well, that wasn't a strike, but we'll take it. It's just like, I don't get it. And you can look at guys like Laz Diaz and Angel Hernandez, a lot of these guys that have been around for a long time, and they are not good umpires. Their strike zones are not good. And like I said, they like to influence the game, and I mean, I guess it takes the human element out of the game, but with technology always advancing and, things are always changing, it's like, how can you not have that? I mean, you have instant replay, and I mean, I think you should add it. I think it should be added. But there's a lot of testing that goes into that, and that's why they're doing that in the minor leagues, and I believe they did that the same thing with like the rule changes too. Because they have to have some kind of got to do some kind of experimenting before you actually implement it. So, but I really think that they should do that because, I mean, if the players are getting frustrated too, and the managers are. I mean, there's always managers complaining. See it all the time. I mean, Laz Diaz, had a terrible, game in Chicago when the Yankees were there, and Aaron Boone had his meltdown, and he mocked Laz Diaz's strike 3 call. So, I mean, you really got to consider doing that, and I think they're going to. It might take a couple years. I mean, if it says it's not going to be implemented next year, then you got to see, but. Right now, it's just, I mean, it's as bad as it's ever been. I feel like every year it gets progressively worse and worse, and there's got to be something. And the problem is when umpires get calls wrong, it doesn't seem like they're held accountable for it. There's no accountability, What you get, and you get this with the NFL too, is if they get a call, if a referee gets a call wrong, there are times they will come out and say, yeah, we got the call wrong after the game. So how does that help us as fans? When it's like, when even we know you got the call wrong, but, it doesn't get resolved in game, it gets resolved after the game. You sometimes show accountability after the game. And it just ruins, and it affects big games. I mean, you look at, the NFL with, the Saints and the Rams in the championship game, several years ago with the, no pass interference call that, would have gave the Saints a first down and they probably would have won the game. But then again, they got the ball in overtime and Breeze threw an interception. But that's a football thing. Then you look at baseball. Now, he did feel very bad about it, but Armando Galarraga's near perfect game, right? Now, this was before replay. So, there's nothing you could do about it at the time. But, Jim Joyce calls the guy safe at first base. And Galarraga ends up not getting a perfect game. Now, that's a guy that felt very bad about what he did. I watched the video of the next day where, I think Galarraga was doing like was giving out the lineup cards and you could see like Jim Joyce was like so like beat up over it. He was in tears that he, messed up that call. So I think a lot of people give him a pass, but umpires have made a lot of mistakes over the years is what I'm trying to say. And the lack of accountability sometimes with these referees, with these officials, with these umpires, it definitely gets on a lot of people's nerves because they have to answer when they get a call wrong. And Major League Baseball especially, when you're watching a game and you see a pitch way out of the zone that gets called a strike, I mean that's a problem, and it happens on a consistent basis. That's a problem, and that needs to that needs to get resolved. I mean, they did a lot this year. We talked about the rule changes and how I love the rule changes. This is something that needs to change because it impacts the game. It really does impact the game. And a lot of players, they don't have the same strike zones as other players. I mean, you got a wide range of size and players. You got Jose Altuve, you got Aaron Judge. Everyone's strike zone is different. And sometimes calls are not made the right way. But you know what? We'll see. They're testing it out, and hopefully, it eventually becomes a thing because it's it really is getting to a point where it's like we need change here. We really there needs to be something. There needs to be something. Somebody needs to be held accountable, and we need robot umpires. So that's really what it all comes down to is robot umpires. See how it goes. And the other thing is this. It's an automated ball strike system. So it's really just going to be that. But I'm guessing then, you'll have a first base umpire. You'll have a, third base umpire still. Yeah, because then, I mean, it's probably somewhere. I just have missed it. But, what about like a check swing? I mean, I guess you still got to have the human umpires for that. I don't know. I think it seems like this is real. I mean, if it's just called an automated, ball strike system, then it's probably just, for balls and strikes. But, on a check swing, I guess you still have to have, a third base umpire and a first base umpire. I'm guessing. I could be wrong, but at least with what I was looking at last night, it didn't seem like that was the case. It didn't seem like there was going to be no human umpires at all. Because what are you going to have? You're going to have a machine at third base, a machine at first base, a machine at second base. I don't think that's not going to happen. But that's another thing is check swings. How is that going to play out? I mean, we'll just have to wait and see. It's but the game is changing, and listen, change sometimes can be good. I'm somebody that doesn't like change at all. I really don't, but it's inevitable. It's inevitable, and especially when you have a problem like this, where the strike zone is very bad. Sometimes umpire strike zones are very bad. You need to do something. You really got to do something, and I'm hoping that MLB addresses this issue as soon as possible, and we see how it goes. We see how it goes. But yeah, that's pretty much it with this topic. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys are in favor of robot umpires or if you want to keep it the same. There's probably there's definitely people that want to keep, human umpires. Because, again, this is also impacting people's jobs too. That's another thing too. When you're replacing a human with a machine, you're impacting someone's livelihood. So that's another thing too that you have to look at. So, but yeah, there's a lot of things that go into this. So, but yeah, so that is segment number 2 of today's show. So with that, we are going to take another quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to go over the scores from last night. Exactly what the Braves did last night to get the division crown. And Matt Olson did not hit number 52 last night, which I was hoping he would because I, for some reason, had 52 on my mind. But that didn't happen. So, yeah, we'll go through the scores. We'll go through the current standings like we usually do. And then the final segment will be looking at the power rankings that were released earlier in the week. So stick around, and we will be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. And for the third segment of today's show, we are going to recap the games from yesterday, and then we will go into the current standings where everything sits at this very moment. I know I touched upon it a little bit in the first segment, but we'll go over the rest of the standings. So, let's get right into it. So last night, Yankees and Red Sox, they got postponed again. So today, they got a doubleheader. Again, another doubleheader. Which, that really stinks. Because now you got to use up your bullpen. You know, one doubleheader is one thing. Now you got to do another one. I mean, it's a mess. This series has been a mess. The Yankees have taken the first two games. Right now, they both sit with the same record, and if they split, they're both going to be tied for last place. Well, right now they're still tied for last place, but if they split, then they're going to stay tied for last place. I just can't believe this. I mean, this used to be the class of the division, and now these teams are in last place. Tied for last place. It really just, that's another reason why the rivalry isn't the same. And by the way, that whole show is up. So I posted the individual segments separately on both the GSMC Sports Network YouTube page and the regular GSMC Podcast Network YouTube. So those are all split up. So if you don't want to watch, if you don't want to skip around through the whole show, the segments are separated. So you could go back and watch that. I'll be posting yesterday's show, reposting it, splitting up the segments into 4 individual segments on both channels as well. And it also will be up, I believe, on Spotify and where you get your podcasts, so your audio podcasts. So that's another avenue in which you can watch the show or listen to the show. Other than just coming into the live stream and listening to me talk for an hour, you could at least, if you just want to watch one segment, you can do that without having to skip around. But anyways, so yeah, Yankees and Red Sox, they split. They have a doubleheader today. Postponed yesterday, so nothing to touch upon there. So the Rays, they get to 90 wins last night. They defeated the Twins 5-4. So the Rays improved to 90 and 57 on the season. The Twins, they dropped to 76 and 70. The Rockies, they beat the Cubs again, I believe. I think, did they win yesterday too? Or 2 days ago? Yes, they did. So they beat the Cubs again 7-3. So that's big, for the Cubs, because especially they're trying to keep pace with the Brewers. But the Brewers actually lost, so they didn't lose any ground there. The Giants beat the Guardians in extra innings 6-5. So they are still in it for that final wild card spot. So yeah, they won in 10 innings, and Lamonte Wade Jr. Had a sacrifice fly. Oh wait, no. Well, he hit the sacrifice fly, and Patrick Bailey scored. So that's how the Giants won yesterday. So we go on. Mariners, they beat the Angels 3-2. Luis Castillo, he picked up his 13th win on the season, so he moves to 13-7 with a 3.08 ERA. And the Angels, they dropped to 11 games under 500. Pirates, they beat the Nationals 7-6. Not really much to touch upon there. Again, I said it yesterday that the Pirates, they got off to a really good start, great start, and then they kind of flamed out. Cardinals, they beat the Orioles 1-0. They blanked the Orioles yesterday. It's kind of surprising. Getting the win was Drew Rom, 23-year-old. He's 1-2 with a 5.96 ERA. So he picked up his first win of the season. He went 5 1/3, 3 walks, 7 Ks. And then the bullpen locked it down for the Cardinals. So the Cardinals again beat the Orioles. So that's interesting. So right now, I think the Rays are 1 game back. No, they're 2 games back. They're 3 games back in the loss column, 1 game back in the win column. I actually want to look at the remaining schedule. I think they play each other again, and they do. Starting tonight, 4-game set at Camden Yards. Rays Orioles. This is a monster series because this could basically determine what the division is going to be. Could very well do that. So that is huge. That is something to watch this weekend. So actually, before we do anything, let's look at we'll go through the scores and then we'll look at the pitching matchups for that series. So then the Reds, they pick up a big win, beat the Tigers 4-3. Braves win 4-1. So they, like I said, they clinched their NL East title. Strider 17-5 now on the season. Spencer Strider 17-5 on the season, 3.73 ERA now. Austin Riley, he had a 2-run home run, and Kevin Pillar had a 2-run double, I think. It just says Marcelo Ozuna scored, but yeah. So Braves win 4-1. Oh wait, Austin Riley had a sacrifice fly. Then Kevin Pillar had a RBI double. I was looking at the wrong thing. So yeah, that's how the Braves, they won, 96 win, and they have another NL East title. Rangers all over the Blue Jays, 10-0. Jordan Montgomery picked up the win, and Kikuchi picked up the loss. So another big win for the Rangers. They're playing good baseball now. Ever since I said they were going to be on the outside looking in, they are now starting to play really good baseball, winning 5 in a row. And the Blue Jays, they are not looking good, and they got to figure some stuff out. So the Mets, they get a win, 7-1 over the Diamondbacks. Lucchesi picked up the win. That's how you pronounce it. And Zach Gallen picked up the loss. So that was also a big loss because he's trying to get the Cy Young in the National League. Justin Steele, I think, is going to get that as of right now. So his record drops to, Gallen drops to 15-8, the 3.5 ERA. We touched upon this a little bit in the first segment. Astros picking up the win 6-2 over the Athletics. The A's dropped to 46-100, so they get their 100th loss on the season. So the Astros, that's a big win, get them back on the right track. Royals win last night, so right now they're 46-101, and the A's are 46-100. So we'll see who finishes with the worst record. Do they play each other anymore this season? Let's actually look. I'm gonna look right now. I don't think they do, but I'm curious. So they're off today. The A's, they play the Padres, the Mariners, Detroit, Minnesota, and the Angels. So no, they do not play each other anymore this year. So, but yeah, move on, and the Marlins, they pick up a win 2-0 over the Brewers. So the Cubs didn't lose any ground, like I said before. So that's big. And the Marlins, they needed that win because they're fighting for that wild card spot. Padres beat the Dodgers 6-1. Blake Snell picks up the win, 14-9 on the season. And Pepio takes the loss, 2-1 with a 2 ERA. And he was actually, because my show from last week, it was live, but it was private. He was one of the top performers that I was talking about, and from his last start, because he pitched very well, and I didn't have any audio because I was using a graphic. I basically just used, a screenshot from my notes on my iPhone, and he was one of the top performers, but you couldn't hear what I was saying because I didn't have any audio, which was terrible. But yeah, so those are the scores. So you go to the standings. Oh wait, actually, before we do that, let's go to the pitching matchups now, because we're going to talk about the AL East first. So right now, the Orioles are 2 games up on the Rays. So right now, the pitching matchups as they are lined up. So you have Aaron Savali and Bradish to start off the series. So that's a good pitching matchup. Then tomorrow's matchup, you have Zach Eflin against Jack Flaherty so that's for Friday. Then for Saturday, if it's up, and if I can find it, why can't I find it? Here we go. We got Tyler Glasnow and Grayson Rodriguez. So that's the third matchup. And then for Sunday, you would think that they would move it to Sunday night. Does it have the same rules as, well, actually, the Sunday night baseball game is actually pretty good for this week. It's the Cubs and the Diamondbacks, so that's good. But, I don't know. Would you try to flex into getting Rays Orioles? I don't know. But, so you got Dean Kramer and Zach Littell. I don't know how do you pronounce it, so I don't know if he's an opener. I don't even know who that. I'm going to be honest, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is. But that's a big series. If the Rays want to take this division, they got to win 3 out of 4, So, but should be a great series. Got to pay close attention to that. But yeah, so looking at the standings, so the Orioles right now 91-54, Rays are 90-57. Rays are 2 games back. The Twins, their magic number is down to 9. They're 76-70 on the season. And when they lose, they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. The Guardians are 3-7. The Guardians, they weren't going to make the playoffs as the season went along, and they traded away guys. But they still could have had a chance. It's just not playing good baseball as of late, as well. 3-7 in their last 10 games is not good. So then you move on to the AL West. And the Astros are 1 game up on the Rangers. Rangers are 6-4, have won 5 in a row in their last 10 games. Astros are 6-4 in their last 10 games, but they have a 1-game winning streak. Well, you don't even want to call it a 1-game winning streak, but yeah, they've won 1 game. They finally beat the A's. And then the Mariners are 1.5 games back. That division race is very close. And I said the Rangers might be the team on the outside looking in. And a lot of people are saying that just because of what's been going on, but they're playing really good baseball right now. And like I keep saying, it's going to come down to who's hot at the right time. So the Braves, they clinched their division. Phillies, they got the top wild card spot at the moment. Brewers are 4 games up on the Cubs. Cubs really got to narrow the gap because I would love to see that final series be what is going to dictate the division. The Dodgers, their magic number right now is at 4, so they're going to get that probably by the weekend, I would imagine. But we'll have to wait and see. And then we get to the wild card standing. So right now the Rays have the top spot, then the Rangers, then the Mariners. The Blue Jays are 1 game back, and then you got the Yankees and the Red Sox. 7.5 games back each. They're still in it, but that will come to an end very soon. In the coming days. So then the National League is just where it's insane. So you got the Phillies. They're at the top. Cubs are below them. Then, as I mentioned before, you got the Diamondbacks and the Reds. They are tied for that 3rd wild card spot. And then you have the Giants and the Marlins, each a half game back. It is crazy. It is just absolutely insane what this race is going to come down to. So yeah, those are the recaps from yesterday and the standings updates. So with that, we are going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll go over the power rankings that were released earlier this week. So before that, once again, to get your comments recognized, make sure to go to, and to donate and tips, make sure to go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And if you want to support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. We greatly appreciate it. And yeah, so with that, I'm going to take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we'll go through the power rankings. So stick around. We'll be right back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, and for the final segment of today's show, we are going to go through the current power rankings that were released earlier this week on MLB.com. And then once again, I know I mentioned the Patreon, so I just want to throw up the graphic again. So this is what you would look up on Patreon.com. You just search up GSMC Sports Network, and that's where you can donate to the show and get exclusive content, which we greatly appreciate that. So yeah, let's run through the power rankings. So right now, well, at least earlier in the week, so at number 30 they had the A's, and 29 they had the Royals, which is really no surprise there. These two teams have 100 losses, and these teams used to be good at one point. I talked about it the other day. The Royals, that was a team that won the World Series, and now look where they are. It's just crazy. And the A's, I mean, the reverse boycott they had earlier in the season, which actually was a lot of fun. I watched a little bit of that. That was a lot of fun. Having that whole stadium pretty much sold out. That was cool. But yeah, it's the A's have been a mess as well. And yeah, it makes sense why they're towards the bottom. The Rockies, the White Sox, the Nationals. The Rockies, I mean, they make the playoffs, once in a while, but then they don't get that far. They lose in the wild card round, they lose in the division series. They can never really get to take that next step. And right now they're again a bad team. And the White Sox, I mean, we'll get into them at some point, but they've been a mess. They're going to lose close to 100 games. And it's a team that's got a lot of talent, but a lot of stuff is going to be changing with them. You can imagine, and it's already started. So, Nationals, although they gave the Yankees some problems, which that's not really much to say because the Yankees haven't really been a good team. But at least when I was watching them closely, the Yankees broadcast, they would say how this team has been playing better baseball as of late. And they showed it because they took 2 out of 3 in the Bronx. They got some young players that can produce. C.J. Abrams, for example. So we'll just have to see. But another thing, actually, I'll have to touch upon at some point is Steven Strasburg, because he retired, and now there's a lot of stuff going on with them and the Nationals. The Nationals don't want to give him the rest of his contract, and they canceled the retirement press conference. There's a lot to get into with that, so I'll have to touch upon that at some point. But yeah, so they were at 26. Cardinals, Tigers, and Mets, the next 3 teams. Cardinals and Mets are part of that, disappointment class of teams that I will, do at some point. The Tigers, Miguel Cabrera is going to go out and retire this year. It's coming up, his final game. So at least that's the one thing Tiger fans, can, take away from this season is watching him play one last time. But yeah, that was another team that used to be so good, and how far they've fallen since then. And Javi Baez, I mean, people just talk about how bad he is now. It's, yeah. But they, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see with them. But yeah, so they're at 24, Mets at 23, Angels at 22. I mean, there's a lot to unpack with the Angels, really. I mean, we scratched the surface with them. We've talked about them a lot, but it's really going to be interesting what happens, where Ohtani goes if they trade Trout. But yeah, so they're at the bottom. Pirates 21, got off to a hot start, but they actually went up 2 spots. I think there's like a number in parentheses next to their names, so I'm guessing, unless someone else knows this, it's from the previous week. So they moved up 2 spots. The Guardians went down 2 spots. They were at 20. Yeah, I had this team winning the division this year, but they dealt with injuries, and they just did not play as good as they did last year. And it's a weak division. So then we get to 19 and 18, Yankees and the Padres. Another couple teams that were really disappointing this year, especially the Padres. With the lineup they had, and guys that they had in their rotation. Josh Hader at closer. This was a team that a lot of people probably picked to go to the World Series, and they're not even going to make the playoffs. And they're 9 games under 500. 10 games under 500. It's just bad. Really bad. Yankees, I don't really need to get into it, but yeah, they've had a rough go at it. Right now, it's, I guess, try to finish over 500. I don't know. Giants are at 17. Red Sox at 16. Although the Giants have a better chance of making the playoffs right now than the Red Sox. Giants are playing better baseball. Red Sox, they've been scuffling as of late. They, got swept in the doubleheader the other day against the Yankees. Got a doubleheader today, and we'll see if they can, pick up a win against them. So then you got the Reds, the Marlins, and the Diamondbacks, 15, 14, and 13. And these are all teams fighting for that wild card spot. And it is going to get very hectic at the it's at the end of the year. I mean, you're going to see teams that might be tied in that spot. It's possible. Twins, you got a 12. They basically won the division by default, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get knocked out of the first round in the wild card round. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Cubs at 11. They should make the playoffs. Right now, the gap between them and the Phillies, I don't know if they're going to catch the Phillies for the top spot, but they got to start winning games to try to get that division. Because, if they can make up some ground going into that last series against the Brewers, that could be huge. Rangers have won 5 in a row. They've been playing really well, so they were at 10. The Phillies at 9, sorry. Right now they're pretty much locked into the spot they're in right now, the top wild card spot. And listen, this team could go back to the World Series. They got the lineup for it. You have a really good pitcher in Zach Wheeler, so we'll just have to wait and see. But they're locked in. Blue Jays were at 8, but I think going into next week they are definitely going to drop because the Rangers have really been beating them up this series. The Brewers are at 7. They've been looking good. Like I said, their new addition, Josh Donaldson, he hit a home run the other day. The pitching's been good. Woodruff, Corbin Burns. So their pitching is what's got them to the playoffs. It's just the offense is what kind of shuts down and doesn't really do anything. And then the Mariners were at 6. So I think that could change. So then the top 5 teams are the Astros, the Rays, the Dodgers, the Orioles, and then the Braves. I'm okay with that. I feel like, right now, because the Astros, they're at 82 wins. Everybody else is like close to 90 or at 90. Again, this was earlier in the week. I think every team has got 90 wins right now. Actually, hold on a second. Do the Dodgers have 90 wins? I got to go back again. They got 88. So they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. Because this article came out, the power rankings came out for this week on September 10th, so on Sunday. But yeah, so I don't really have a problem with the list. I mean, I'd probably say the Dodgers are better than the Orioles still, but Orioles deserve to be in the top 3. And that Rays series is huge. That really could dictate the outcome of the division, essentially. And we will just have to wait and see. But that's basically the power rankings for this week. I don't really have any big complaints with it. I think pretty much the teams are all where they need to be. The Astros, at 5, and being the last team in the top 5, it's kind of when it comes to the playoffs, I like them better than the Rays, and I like them better than the Orioles. So I would put them at 3, but this is going into the playoffs though, so we'll just have to wait and see. But it's gonna be it's going to be a lot of fun going into the playoffs. And, you know, I like I said, I don't really have any complaints with that. But, yeah, so that's the power rankings. And we got a couple minutes left in the show. Kind of funny thing. So I was going to touch upon this in the beginning of the show, but I didn't. I thought I was going to be in a dark room for the show. I still would have had my ring light. I still would have my desk lamp to give me light. So I turned on my light as I was getting ready for the show today. And all of a sudden, the light flashed and all my lights went out. Nothing was working with my light fixture. So I was like, okay, looks like I'm going to be doing the show in the dark. Now, my room's kind of dark because I have blinds, because I don't want the sun, coming into my room and shining on me while I'm trying to sleep. So I would have just had to raise the blind. So it would have worked out. But I mean, I was like, again, we got something else going on. What's happening? That just things can't go. Because yesterday was the Wi-Fi connection, and my dad was vacuuming up some stuff because, like I said, my house was getting redone. Well, the floor was getting redone. But now all of a sudden, I got the lights in my room got to go out, and I'm like, what? But my dad was able to fix it. It was just one light bulb went out, but for some reason it just turned off like the whole. I don't know how that works. I'm not an electrician, so I don't really know. But all he had to do was just open up the circuit, whatever, and flick the switch, and everything was working again. So it was just one light bulb, just kind of screwed everything up. But everything is back, everything is working, we're good. And we were able to, and it wouldn't have been a big deal because I would have enough light. I would just have to open the blinds, and I got 2 lights here, the ring light, the latest addition to my my little setup here in my room. But yeah, that was just something I had to deal with. But yeah, I wanted to bring that up. But yeah, another day, another showdown tomorrow. Will be the last show for the week. So we got through. Now it wasn't a full week because I didn't have a show on Monday. I did post the show from last week, had that up, but yeah, I didn't have a show on Monday because I was coming back from my cousin's wedding. But next week will be the first full week of shows, 5 days, 11 to 12 live stream, and then the half-hour Patreon. So again, if you want to see exclusive content, make sure to sign up for Patreon. Go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network. And yeah, that's basically the show for today. It was a good show. I went fast. I mean, really every show that I've done so far has gone fast, and we've added 15 minutes on each time. And yeah, so I'm pretty much done with this, and then I am going to, after this, because usually what I do is I record the Patreon right after this. So and that's kind of just been going through the what we talked about today on the show. So I'll pretty much go through every segment of the show today, and then yeah, and maybe touch upon some other stuff that I didn't get to here. So yeah, that's basically what the Patreon is. But if you go and sign up, we'll greatly appreciate that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So that is all the time that we have for today. I thank you for listening. Make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Well, now it's called X. So we greatly appreciate that. And we will be back tomorrow, 11 o'clock streaming. So I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off. Thank you for listening. Have a good day. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.